A domain controller is a server that stores a copy of the ADDS directory database, ntds.dit, and a copy of the sysvol folder. All domain controllers except RODC store a read/write copy of both ntds.dit and the sysvol folder. ntds.dit is the database itself, and the sysvol folder contains all the template settings and files for GPOs. Domain controllers use a multi-master replication process to copy data from one domain controller to another. This means that for most operations, data can be modified on any domain controller, except for an RODC. The ADDS replication service then synchronizes the changes to the ADDS database with all the other domain controllers in the domain. In Windows Server 2016, you can use only Distributed File System (DFS) replication to replicate the sysvol folders. Earlier versions of Windows Server used the File Replication Service (FRS) to replicate the folders, but FRS is obsolete for several versions of Windows. Domain controllers host several other services related to ADDS. These include the Kerberos Authentication Service, which user and computer accounts use for sign-in authentication, and the Key Distribution Center, KDC, which issues the ticket granting ticket, TGT, to an account that signs into the ADDS domain. Optionally, you can configure domain controllers to host a copy of the global catalog. All users in an ADDS domain exist in the ADDS database. If the database is unavailable for any reason, all operations that depend on domain-based authentication will fail. As a best practice, an ADDS domain should have at least 2 domain controllers. This makes the ADDS database more available and spreads the authentication load during peak sign-in times. Note, consider 2 domain controllers as the absolute minimum for most enterprises, to ensure high availability and performance. When you deploy a domain controller in a branch office where physical security is less than optimal, you can use additional measures to reduce the impact of a breach of security. One option is to deploy an RODC. The RODC contains a read-only copy of the ADDS database, and by default, it does not cache any user passwords. You can configure the RODC to cache the passwords for users in the branch office. If an RODC is compromised, the potential loss of information is much lower than with a full read/write domain controller. Another option is to use BitLocker drive encryption to encrypt the domain controller's hard drive. If someone steals the hard drive, BitLocker will help to ensure that a malicious hacker has difficulty getting any useful information from it. Note, BitLocker is a drive encryption feature that is available for Windows Server operating systems and certain Windows client operating systems. BitLocker encrypts the entire drive to help prevent the computer from starting unless it receives a private key and, optionally, passes an integrity check. A hard drive remains encrypted even if you transfer it to another computer.